Anyway, we just.
That's awesome. That's
one. You guys love my singing to get us started, don't you? Welcome, everyone, to today's City Council.
We don't have audio yet.
I'm just kidding. Now we're good? All right, let's try this again. Welcome to today's Salt Lake City Council formal meeting. I am happy to share our hybrid pilot meeting last week ran successfully, so today marks the beginning of our hybrid meetings going forward. I mean, given the status of the world at any one time. We are truly grateful for the public's patience, but most importantly, we are glad you are joining us today, whether virtually or in person. I'm so incredibly happy to be back on site with my council colleagues and with the public being able to attend today's meeting in person. If you are joining us on site, the council is following CDC guidelines to prevent and reduce transmission of COVID-19 and maintain healthy business operations and work environments. Per CDC guidelines, face coverings are strongly recommended for all and are required for those who are not fully vaccinated. We are also helping people try to maintain a 6-foot social distancing. All right, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the public comment opportunities today, we are accepting your comments through WebEx, and for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate phone line. Of course, we're also accepting comments in person if you're here. Before we begin moving through our agenda, I just want to mention and review our rules of decorum. These are guidelines that the City Council has always had in place to help our meeting progress in an orderly, civil, and efficient way. These help us move through the agenda and give everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions without feeling intimidated. It's important for us that this is a safe space for everyone to have their opinion heard. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum begin from the moment you arrive into our in-person meeting or our virtual meeting. The council respects all points of view, and we welcome new insights. While giving your comments, please be respectful. Avoid yelling, profanity, or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. If you use profanity during your comment, If you're online, your line will be muted, and if you are in person, we will ask you to stop. We'll ask you to stop. And if any comments reach a level of disrespect, I will ask that you be muted or that you leave the building, that you leave the comment area, and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call our comment line. In addition, our staff will request for your name during the registration. That's whether you're filling out a comment card in person or if you're filling something out, if you're registering in our virtual meeting. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name doesn't meet this requirement, then you will not be, if you're in person, we'll work with you to get a name that does meet the requirement. And if you are virtual, then we can use the chat feature. Isaac Canedo from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and will be messaging with attendees to coordinate on questions with your commenting registration. Staff is handling a number of tasks. Please limit messages to technical issues and minimal changes to your registration. Especially now as we're doing this hybrid meeting, we have staff working on all issues in all areas, both virtually and in person. So please be respectful of their time as well as they try to make sure that everybody's needs are being met as quickly and efficiently as possible. Well, this brings us to item A4. The council will consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall. Mayor, thank you for joining us virtually. It's good to see you. Declaring racism as a public health crisis. I believe Councilmember Mano is joining us virtually to read the resolution. Is that true?
I'm texting him right now. I told him that you would read it if he can
Yes.
get on.
We're just waiting 1 second. Are you going to sing for us while we wait, James?
Classy choice.
We're texting, but he must not have seen my last. Well,
I won't pull out a knife, I promise.
Shall I?
maybe, yeah.
Okay. We don't have Councilmember Mano with us right now, so I will read this resolution. This is a joint resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention declares that racism is a system consisting of structures, policies, practices, and norms that assigns value and determines opportunity based on the way people look or the color of their skin. And whereas racism is a serious public health threat because racism, both interpersonal and structural, is proven to have harmful impacts to the mental and physical health of communities of color. And whereas racism is declared as a public health crisis that directly impacts Salt Lake City residents, resulting in health disparities that are both measurable and preventable. And whereas racism affects where one lives, learns, works, worships, and plays, which creates inequities in access to a range of social and economic benefits, such as housing, education, wealth, and employment, which are often referred to as social determinants of health. And racism is a key driver of the determinants of health, shaping access to resources such as education, housing, employment, and healthcare that creates opportunities for health. And whereas outcomes from the structural inequities can be seen through increased exposure to environmental toxins, unmet housing needs, disparities in policing and the criminal justice system, inadequate private and public investment, decreased access to educational and employment opportunities, and multitudes of health measures. And whereas this nation and the states and municipalities within have been designed to systematically disadvantage underrepresented racial and ethnic groups, thereby creating health disparities that have persisted even after the civil rights movement following the abolition of slavery. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has illustrated how pre-existing structural inequities created heavier burdens of disease, death, and social consequences onto communities of color in Utah. And whereas the data from the Utah Department of Health reveals stark differences in health between persons of color and their white counterparts. 1, odds of infection were 3 times more likely in very high deprivation areas such as Glendale, and 2 times more likely in Rose Park, where there are high percentages of Latino and non-white residents. 2, the Latino communities account for 14.2% of Utah's population, but 40% of the state's COVID-19 cases. 3, American Indian and Alaska Native communities in Utah had a case fatality rate that is roughly 3 times higher than the state average. 4, Black persons in Utah are significantly less likely to be screened for colorectal cancer, but more likely to both contract and die from colorectal cancer. 5, Black and Asian babies born in Utah are more likely to have a low birth weight. 6, Pacific Islanders have twice the rate of infant mortality than the statewide average. And whereas Salt Lake City believes we have a moral imperative to combat racism, discrimination, and inequities in all its manifestations, and whereas leaders from Utah's healthcare organizations declared systemic racism a threat to the health of patients, families, and communities through economic and resource inequities which result in poor health outcomes. And whereas Salt Lake City has recently moved forward to develop a citywide equity plan with a goal to methodically review all city practices and policies and confront the systems that have resulted in generational injustice and health inequities. And whereas Salt Lake City remains committed to the work that it will take now and into the future to dismantle our racist legacies so that all feel welcome and safe in Salt Lake City. That in our capacity as a local municipal authority, we declare racism as a moral and public health crisis in our city, state, and nation, and reaffirm our commitment to the principles of the Utah Compact on racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. That was now therefore be it resolved, that in our capacity. Be it further resolved that we commit to look internally, externally, and encourage all who reside, work, and own businesses in our city to commit to the work necessary to dismantle racist legacies and equitably work to repair our communities. That we commit to seek out strategies and solutions to unfair institutions in our society, businesses, government, and culture to improve the health outcomes and the life of all persons of color of Salt Lake City. That as we continue our work going forward, we will continue to be critical about the policies and ordinances we create to ensure that they do not add to the compounding of inequities and that they work to undo the damage done over many years. Be it further resolved that Salt Lake City commits to work with county health officials and data partners to report and review public health data, including city health metrics, current tasks to be done, next steps to address poor outcomes, make public health data available online, increase transparency, utilize city equity staff to work with the county health partners to address systemic barriers to health, including racism. Sorry, and that's all for that. At this point, I would see if there is a motion to adopt this resolution.
I move we adopt this resolution.
I have a motion by Councilmember Ferris. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Did anyone want to speak to this?
Just wanted to say that I appreciate, the mayor's support and the chair and vice chair of the council to do this. We don't have to tell you, you already read everything that it's going on, and this is a great sign to those communities of colors that we are doing our best and will continue to do our best to eliminate all the racist issues in the system that we have. Thank you.
Councilmember Valdemoros. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
There are no opposed. That passes unanimously with Councilmember Mano not being present. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for joining us with this resolution. I would also at this time, like to take just a moment to recognize the dedicated efforts of the following individuals who we understand were instrumental in helping to draft this resolution language. Kevin Wynn, so I'm going to read out a list of names that all were very instrumental in this resolution. We appreciate the hard work that they were doing, not just for this, but for all of our communities and our communities of color. Kevin Wynn, Kunani Tuttle, Anna Wynn, Verona Maga, Emilio Manuel Camus, Stephanie Burdick, Syriac Alvarez, Yvette Lopez, Maria Guadarrama, the mayor's staff, Carlo Pali, and Felian Ipol. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to include Margarita Sutini, who passed away in 2020. She was a huge advocate, and we appreciate all of her contributions to this resolution.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I request that we send a copy of our resolution to the Utah League of Cities and Towns and encourage them to share it with their members so that other cities can pass similar ordinances?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. With that, I do believe we have Kevin Wynn here, who we understand brought forth this resolution with the mayor's office, and that Kevin would like to say a few words before we move on to the public hearings. Do we have Kevin available? Maybe.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Oh, there,
Yes, we can. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your efforts in bringing this resolution to the mayor and to the city council, and for the work that you're doing. So we'll turn the few minutes over to you at this time.
Thank you so much, Mayor and the council and all the community members that are present, along with everyone who's really put an effort to make this resolution happen. It was definitely a team effort. It's incredible to hear it read out loud. You know, the work that was put into this, the thought, the care, the emotions, the feelings, and the dedication to the city of Salt Lake and our community members. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate, the mayor and the council and everyone who's part of this to really set an example for our state. I want to first, thank Representative Hollins for leading this effort and acknowledging her efforts from a statewide perspective to declare racism as a public health and moral health crisis. We know that these declarations are really a first important step in the movement to advance racial equity and justice and making sure that all of our communities are taken care of. I want to also thank my team. I don't know who is on here currently, but I really appreciate their efforts. All this is done on their own time, and I want to acknowledge that I am speaking for them, but they get just as much credit in part of this, along with the city staff who have been really fantastic. Huge shout out to Weston and the crew for bringing me along and allowing us the opportunity to help create this wonderful resolution. I want to also honor Margarita Satini and our past leaders who have been huge community advocates, change makers, and most importantly, friends to myself and everyone else who's a part of this as well. Margarita passed away, as we know, due to COVID, as she was working to change the inequities that we know many of our racial and ethnic minority communities face during this pandemic. And really, this resolution, I want to say, is most importantly for our community members, across the city of Salt Lake. Hopefully this brings a light of hope, knowing that our city cares for us and want to make a difference. And I'm glad that I was able to be part of this process. And once again, thank you so much for the opportunity, Mayor and Council and everyone else who was involved. I can't thank you all enough.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And Kevin, if I may, yes, Mayor's clapping. If I may ask that you, if you would like to get in touch with a council staff and give us your contact information so we can send you a copy of the resolution for you to have. So if you can just get in touch, just call the council office. Somebody will help you. But we'd like to make sure you have a copy of this resolution as well, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, council members, and thank you again, Mayor, and everyone who's here tonight.
Thank you. Council members, I see Darren. I'm sorry, Darren, that we didn't have you here earlier to read the resolution, but thank you for popping on. I don't know that he can hear me.
Be able to hear you.
Okay, somebody text with him. With that, before we get to the rest of our agenda, I would like to take a point of personal privilege. The last 18 months, 16 months, we've all been doing this virtually, and we've had a lot of changes within our council while we've all been sitting in our homes on our computers and it's so exciting to be here all in person to see each other and be together. But a lot of those changes that happened, we didn't really get to be all together to really appreciate and enjoy those changes. And two of those changes are that that Andrew decided that the mayor's office was cooler than ours, or something. And so he left our city council for an amazing opportunity and job at the mayor's office. And if anyone tuned into the work session earlier, or any time I've talked about this, I said, dang it, Mayor Mendenhall, you can't take Andrew. And then she did, and it is the perfect fit. So I want to welcome Andrew into our city council. And I would love to welcome his wife and children, Clarissa, Jackson, and Caroline, for being here as well. Andrew, we have a couple of little things for you.
Little, come on now.
So I don't know if many of you know this, but Andrew was, he would, during like the holidays for his newsletter, he would make, he'd have his picture be a different thing all the time. And since you have two young children and everybody knows children love to play match games, we got a deck of cards for you that says, "Match That Andrew." And so it's all of your different pictures from your newsletters that you will be able to match and make fun of your dad. And really, who doesn't love to make fun of their dad? So you get to do that. There are, just as a highlight, there are such things on here as Andrew the vampire, Andrew the leprechaun, and I've seen a few others in there, so I think that you guys will all have fun playing those. The other thing, and many of you may know that Andrew and I believe James were instrumental in coming up with sort of this West Side logo, and that Andrew rides his bike everywhere. I don't even think I've only seen Andrew twice in a car, and we were in a van going somewhere on a tour or something. Every other time. Down by the river. Yes, we were in a van down by the river. And every other time he's been on his bike. So we got these panniers for your bike with your West Side logo on them. So now you can carry all the tools you need to solve homelessness while you're on your bike in your panniers with your West Side logo. Yes, yes.
I blame it on Austin, by the way. My liaison.
Thank you for your service here on the council and your continued service for Salt Lake City. The second big change that happened that we didn't get to fully appreciate was our former chair, Chris Wharton. Chris was, yep. That's why Chris J is here. Now you get it.
I get it now.
So we would love to welcome Chris, Councilmember Wharton, former chair member Wharton, his husband, Chris J. Thank you for being here and for supporting our Chris during quite the calamitous year while you were chairperson. I know from discussions with you how difficult it was, how oftentimes, while it probably felt lonely to many of us while we were sitting in our offices with the responsibility of being chair and that weight on your shoulders, how incredibly lonely that must have felt at times. And you still went through it with the humor and grace and puns that you are so famously known for here with our council. And so, we wanted to give you, and I'm gonna let you open it.
Thank you. Oh. It's a box.
It's a box.
It's a box.
Yay! Yes. Can you?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So.
This is great.
This
Thank
is
you.
a gavel.
It's
If
beautiful.
anybody tuned in to any of our virtual meetings last year, Chris was very known for making sure that we adjourned with the gavel. So, Chris, this is from one of the gavel and the stand is made from one of the downed trees during the September 8th windstorms. I know that our staff worked very hard with Paul Russell, the artist, to create this gavel and the piece that is on the stand. What is that thing called? That?
This.
Yes,
the
that.
striking block.
The striking
maybe.
block.
I like that. That was good.
Thank you.
This is made of Norway maple and reminds you that life is renewable and the good that came out of your strong leadership during a year of incredibly unexpected circumstances. So thank you so much, and
Thank you.
sound on.
Thank you. This is really beautiful, and I love it. Yes.
Yay!
Ha!
And of course, in closing, I just want to say thank you both so much for your service, and thank you to your families and to the council members as a whole. Thank you to all of you and all of your families as we are slowly, hopefully, knock on wood, returning to somewhat normalcy. It was our families and friends standing by us that I think got us through the last year of all of that. So thank you both, and that's that. I didn't know. Oh, Dan would like us all to get a picture. Picture. You stand there.
We're all in this? Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why not? As long as I get to stand behind Chris.
Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I can do it. I can do it.
That'll work.
Let's put James and Andrew need to stand there so we can screw up the end.
Everybody, come on up here. Come with me.
I'm here.
We're gonna take a picture.
No, she can't see it.
Get up, but I'm just gonna wait.
Does she know what we're doing? Do they know what we're doing?
Don't tell them.
Mayor and Darren, they are standing in front of the screen so that you can be in the picture too. So smile big.
Don't lean back, man. Don't lean back. Don't hurt yourself.
Just got back in person.
Sorry? Okay. Isn't it good? It's Norway wood.
It's Norway Maple.
All right, enough gushy stuff. Let's get on to business, shall we?
I'm just relieved that Chris Jensen wasn't here with a comment. So that's why I thought he was here. He was mad.
He was going to complain about his council member? All right, everybody. We are going to begin with our public hearings. Taylor Hill and our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Once we open public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. There's not really anybody, there's a couple people here, I think, to make general comments eventually. We'll get to that, okay. When it is your turn to speak, Taylor will say your name, unmute your line, and you may begin. Please state your name, and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time, and your microphone will be muted. If you are unable to finish your comment, please refer to your chat screen, and our staff will post our contact information. Now, just as a friendly reminder, this is our public hearings portion, so we will only be taking comment on the public hearings that are listed in the agenda. We will get to the general comments section wherein you can tell the council whatever you'd like to tell them outside of the public hearings. So, our first public hearing is regarding a grant application request from the Emergency Management to the Utah Division of Emergency Management. If awarded, this grant would fund the planning and updating of emergency preparedness plans, conducting exercises, and producing materials for public education and outreach pertaining to emergency preparedness. We have, like, Salt Lake City has no history in emergencies, so I would turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, council staff, to give a short introduction, I think, unless I just gave it.
Yeah.
There's Sylvia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You did a wonderful job, so I'll just say something briefly about grants in general, which is that the city applies for and receives grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. And as you mentioned, there is that one emergency grant for public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Taylor, you can start with our first public comment.
It looks like we do not have anyone who wants to speak on this item this evening.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. With that, I will look for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the council close the public hearing and refer action B1 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers, a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, yay, Darren. Okay, there are no opposed. That passes unanimously. Our second public hearing item, B2, is regarding budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2021-2022. Before we begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Ben Ludke, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction. Hi, Ben.
Thank you, Chairperson. There are 4 items in budget amendment number 1.
They total just over $7.5 million in expenditures. The items include using American Rescue Plan Act, that is ARPA funds, for police officer salaries, salary adjustments for non-represented city employees, this is the general fund as well as enterprise funds, additional emergency rental assistance funds from the federal government. And for anyone that is listening, if you know a renter that could use help paying their rent, they can go to rentrelief.utah.gov to apply. The administration's proposal and the staff memo are all available in today's meeting packet.
Great, thank you. And can we have somebody maybe put that link in the chat, please? That would be for the renter relief. That'd be great. With that, Taylor, we can start with our first public comment, please.
Council Chair, it looks like we have about 5 people here to speak for this item. First, Ruth Ann Allen, followed by George Chapman, and then Ann Charles.
And Taylor, you cut out a little bit at the beginning, so can you list those 3 names one more time?
So it'll be Ruth Ann Allen, and then George Chapman, and then Ann Charles. And Ruth Ann Allen, you are now unmuted.
Taylor, I'm not sure if she heard you.
Taylor, we don't know that she heard you. We're not hearing anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm speaking on the right thing. So I am Ruth Ann Allen, a college coach and tennis instructor at Liberty Park and Wasatch Tennis Centers. I have been part of the Salt Lake tennis community for over 45 years. I have lasting memories of these 2 facilities from my childhood. As an instructor, I see how these public facilities have given thousands of community members over the years an affordable and accessible means to play the lifelong sport of tennis, which truly is a lifelong sport, since I've seen children as young as 2, 3, and 4 playing, all the way into people in their 80s and 90s participating. And there's very few activities in sports like this. I've been told many times from people that I've met through tennis that it's saved their life, either through their health improving or a sense of community and friendship through the sport of tennis. So these 2 well-managed facilities, Wasatch and Liberty Park, they offer programs and courts to at-risk youth, high school programs, Utah tennis tournaments, regional and national events, and all the rest of us who enjoy competing, socializing, or just getting out with our family and friends to play. And it would be dollars well spent in the community to support capital improvements at these facilities. At a time when community dollars have been raised, a city investment would ensure that these facilities continue to offer our city and state a means to participate in the lifelong sport of tennis. And there are very few, and I can't think of any really public facilities like this in our city and state. Thank you for your time.
Taylor, you can just keep going with the next caller.
Sorry. Sorry, guys. Is this working? So next in line is George Chapman, Ann Charles, and then Angie Starr.
Cindy Lou, is it that Taylor's lost connection?
I think a host has lost connection, and so they're working on balancing that right now.
Sorry for the wait, everyone. We are working on it, and as successful as our hybrid model is, there's always technical issues no matter what, because it just is life. So be patient, and we will make sure that we can hear the next caller as soon as we can hear the next caller.
Okay, Taylor.
Sorry, my bad. I just realized my microphone was going. Give me 1 second.
It was Isaac.
Okay, so next was George Chapman, I believe. I will unmute him in a minute. Sorry, we were figuring out the host roles and who can unmute. We almost have it ready to go.
Can you hear me now?
Yay. Hi, George. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for Budget Amendment 1. And for the more appropriate salary, obviously, for cops. There's no substitute for a cop, as I've said many times before. Even the fire department asked for a cop to respond during many drug overdose calls. But we don't have enough cops now to even hire and utilize more social workers. That's how bad it is. We don't have enough cops to do homeless camp cleanups with the county health department without begging for voluntary overtime. We don't have enough cops to answer emergency calls in a timely manner. So what I'm asking for is this budget amendment should have a sign-on and retention bonus system for experienced and well-trained officers. We need to get back up to staffing levels that the citizens, businesses, and voters demand. So I'm asking you again to put in a sign-on and retention bonus system, or it'll take almost 5 years to get back up to appropriate staffing levels with cops that are well-trained and very well experienced at de-escalation. Please recognize that there's no substitute for a well-trained and experienced cop. Those are my comments on Budget Amendment 1. Thanks for listening.
Now we have Ann Charles, followed by Angie Starr, and then Nigel. Ann, if you will give me 1 second. And you are unmuted.
Thanks. I want to oppose this amendment. It gives millions of dollars to the police from the American Rescue Plan, which was supposed to directly help our citizens. We can invest those dollars in more housing, more homeless services, more just basic direct access to housing, shelter, food, resources to our community. George Chapman was just speaking about how we don't have enough cops for the social workers. We can just hire more social workers, or for homeless camp cleanups. If people have housing, you won't need to clean homeless camps. Or emergency services. We can hire more paramedics for our community. You just said that racism is a public health crisis that directly impacts our residents. And you talked about the systemic and structural inequities that are in place, and you are directly funding that. And you are directly funding the disparities involved. That's just using the rhetoric that you know is popular right now to mask these actual decisions that you're making. You said that you have a moral duty to work against the systems that hold this in place, and you are not doing that by increasing funding. You should not give this to the police for pay increases when we have over 30 officers who have had multiple shootings. We should make sure that our community is safe and that this money can go directly to it. Thank you.
Now we have Angie Starr, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Emily Allworth. Angie, you are unmuted. Angie, you are unmuted now, I think. Oh, it seems we have lost Angie. We will be moving on to Nigel. Nigel, you are unmuted now.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council members. My name is Nigel Swaby, and I am speaking in support of this budget amendment. I think you guys pulled out a Hail Mary with the police by offering them a raise, and that will go towards retention, which is something that we definitely need with Salt Lake PD. But we're going to have a real problem if funding and culture within the department doesn't improve. And I don't know what the solution is going to be, but we've got a nice Band-Aid here, so thank you for that. And I urge you to vote for that. That's it.
1 second. Next, we have Emily Allworth. I will be unmuting her in 1 bit. Just need to clarify something.
$1,000, maybe 1,600.
Emily, you will be unmuted now.
So rich that he just doesn't.
Okay, maybe I think that wasn't the right mic. I'll unmute her in 1 second. I apologize for all the technical difficulties.
You're doing great, Isaac.
All right, so I will be unmuting Emily Allworth now. Hopefully it works. Emily, can you speak?
Hello?
Emily? Okay, it works.
All right. I would like to speak in opposition to this. I do not believe that this is a good use of funds. From what I understand about this amendment, there would be money from the emergency management performance grant, and it would be used for the Department of Public Safety and specifically for funding the police. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the defund the police movement and the pleas from citizens to reallocate money into the community versus continuously giving money to a system that is clearly not working. We are consistently giving more and more of our budget to policing, and it is not working because we are not solving the problems. Police are consistently disappointing everyone. Even the people who are speaking for this amendment are saying that they are disappointed with how long it takes for police to respond to issues. I believe that having police show up after an issue has occurred and merely trying to address the issue after it has happened is not an appropriate way of handling issues within our community. I think we need to start addressing them as they happen. This means giving more funding to people who are unsheltered, giving more funding for education, which our state is continually underfunding, giving more funding to our libraries, which we are redirecting to different systems. I think that we need to reallocate this money, and instead of using government grant money on paying police officers, I think that we should instead use it on the things that it can be used for, such as providing outreach to people who have suffered financially with COVID-19 and actually retaining other people within our system. I think that people who are doing social work and people who are doing work within our community to de-escalate situations should be getting a raise. I do not believe a department that is continuously responsible for inappropriate actions and is putting our city in a negative light by shooting people is not appropriate. The average base rate salary of a police officer in Salt Lake City is $23.39 per hour. That is a lot of money, and I think that it is far too much. Honestly, I don't think people need a raise.
Council members, we have nobody else here for this item.
Madam Chair, seeing we don't have any other comments tonight, I'd like to make a motion. I move the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2021-22 final budget of the Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing document as shown on the motion sheet.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Thank you. We are on to item B3. It is regarding the Mosquito Abatement District's intent to levy a property tax increase for fiscal year 2022. Before taking any comments, I will turn the time over to Lehua Weaver, our council staff policy analyst, to give a short introduction. Hi, Lehua. Thank you.
Thank you. The Mosquito Abatement District is a taxing entity providing service within Salt Lake City boundaries. The district role and authority is mostly governed by state code, with their board appointed by the Salt Lake City Council. The state-established process for the district to consider a property tax increase is to present the information to the City Council and receive public comment through your meeting. Although the council does not have a formal role in approving or denying the property tax increase, this hearing serves as an opportunity for additional public information. The district manager and several, if not all of their board members, are here listening to the comments this evening as well. And that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Lehua. Isaac, or are we still with Isaac calling names? Okay, Isaac, we can turn to our first commenter on this.
Taylor is back to being host.
Okay.
Sorry, didn't want
You're
to
fine.
interrupt.
Taylor, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. So we have about 7 people here to speak on this item. First will be Brian Monek, followed by Tina Rohr, and then Alice McHugh. Brian, you are now unmuted.
I'm Dr. Brian Minch. Last week, the council listened to a 27-minute presentation by the Mosquito Abatement District trying to justify their intent to levy a significant tax increase on property owners. A lot of impressive words were used, like scientific, precision, proactive, environmentally rational, and atmospheric modeling. Some alarming words were also used, like yellow fever, Zika, and 20,000 mosquitoes in a single night. You saw a graph that showed drops in mosquito populations after airplanes spread pesticides over thousands of acres. But there is another side you were not shown. In SlickMed's presentation, there was not a single slide about medical science, not a single sentence written by a physician, not a single word about the hundreds of medical studies that indicate repeated use of pesticides is a public health hazard, or that almost certainly every resident of the Salt Lake Valley is contaminated with these pesticides, including the breast milk of nursing mothers. Not a single acknowledgement that the pesticides used by SlickMed are banned in Europe and banned for residential use in the US, or the numerous studies that have proven beyond any doubt that they literally damage brain development in fetuses and infants and are associated with autism at very low doses. You weren't told that spraying does not decrease the incidence of West Nile virus, or that mosquitoes are developing chemical resistance, or that the mosquito populations quickly rebound after spraying, or that the district admitted in print that the very strategy depicted in that graph often does not work, or that the communities of color will suffer the most exposure and the most permanent neurologic harm to their children, or that other cities are already controlling mosquitoes without pesticides. On behalf of the over 3,000 members of Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, including 450 physicians, I ask the council to give us as much time and opportunity to present the other side of this issue as you gave to SlickMed. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Tina Rohr, followed by Alice McHugh, and then George Chapman. Tina, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tina Rohr. Do we, the people of Salt Lake City, and you, the representatives of our city, want to allow the SlickMed to raise taxes to pay for spraying of neurotoxins over the most heavily populated part of the state, a state that has one of the highest rates of autism in the country? The pesticides used by Salt Lake City and Mosquito Abatement District are neurotoxins, which cause damage to our health and the health of our children, especially our unborn babies. Pesticides are now found in amniotic fluid, fetuses, and mother's breast milk. Pesticides cross the blood-brain barrier and contaminate the womb, including the baby's brain, and impair the fetus's development permanently. Insecticides work by infecting the nerve cells of insects, but also work the same way on human fetuses and infants. The baby's nerve cells are damaged by the neurotoxin sprayed on purpose in our Salt Lake Valley. The damage to the nervous system from organophosphate is comparable to that from the banned pesticide DDT and is associated with impaired brain development, loss of intellect, and behavior problems. The research showing the toxicity of organophosphate and links to autism is comprehensive. Attention deficit disorder, abnormal reflexes, mental and motor delays, and decreases in IQ in children are also associated with pesticide exposure. The evidence is clear. Pesticide spraying damages developing fetuses and contributes to autism in children. Salt Lake City Mosquito Abatement District should discontinue the spraying of poisonous chemicals into the air that we and our babies breathe. We, the people of Salt Lake City, do not want dangerous toxins sprayed into our air. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Alice McHugh, followed by George Chapman, and then Ann Charles. Alice, you are now unmuted.
I am a resident of Salt Lake City. You have heard a great deal now about the toxicity of the pesticides being used by our mosquito abatement district. If those same toxins are banned in Europe and many other cities, why have other options not been explored? Further, if SlickMed is able to raise the taxes, they will not change their behavior. There's no incentive for them to change their behavior. So it will just continue a counterproductive quagmire of more and more toxins and more toxin-resistant mosquitoes. Makes no sense. Thanks.
Next, we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Ann Charles, and then Nigel Swaby. George, you are now unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm going to have to keep asking the question, obviously. Okay, I'm against the mosquito tax increase. I actually spoke against the big 50% increase in 2016. I remember that because that was a really big insult. So this tax increase for mosquito abatement is another insult, especially when the inland port should be funding an increase in mosquito abatement. I mean, duh. Why should Salt Lake City taxpayers be forced to pay a big tax increase to benefit the inland port? The inland port should be paying for this. And I also remind the council, the mayor, and Carlton Christensen and the Mosquito Board that the district increased taxes in 2016 by over 50%. You missed that. The Mosquito Board presentation missed that and convenient left it out in the presentation. That was wrong. That's a misdirection. I think that's disrespectful. This tax increase for an area that Salt Lake City citizens are not allowed to be responsible for is an insult. The city shouldn't just take it. I recognize the legislature gave the authority to do it to the board, but this city should be fighting against it. This is not ethical or responsible, and I urge the city to continue to fight this at the board and at the legislature. Just don't take it sitting down. This is a big problem for us. Please keep fighting against it. Those are my comments.
Now we will hear from Ann Charles, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Emily Allworth. Ann, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. I agree fully with George in what he is saying. We should make the inland port pay their fair share. What are we as a community gaining from this? Because the mosquito abatement is directly for the inland port. And you were just talking about environmental racism within this comment that you just gave. And within that, communities of color, like other speakers previously said, will be directly impacted not only by the inland port more, but also by the mosquito abatement more. They are getting the brunt of this impact. You are currently gaslighting us as a community. You are saying things that say you are for equity and justice, and then you are doing things that are counter to that. As a therapist who helps women move out of abusive, manipulative relationships, that is how I'm feeling you are interacting with us as a public right now. It is extremely frustrating, and I don't know why you would vote for this increase for us to pay more for something the inland port should all along. We should not be continuing to fund this thing. That is all I have to say.
Next, we will hear from Nigel Swaby and then Emily Allworth. Nigel, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. Again, my name is Nigel Swaby, and I agree completely with George Chapman on this. This is absolute abuse of power by the state to try and force a tax increase on the citizens and property owners of Salt Lake City for mosquito abatement that benefits their property at the inland port and at the state prison. This should be the bill if, and I'm not even addressing the health concerns that have been put out there, but if there's a bill for increased abatement at those properties, it should go to the state and to the inland port. I'm completely opposed to this. And I know that city council has no say on this, but I think this should go in as an additional exhibit in the city's lawsuit against the inland port. If we lose on this one, they're going to try and get another one on something else. We're going to have increased taxes for fire, for police, and all these other things that they didn't tell us about. So you've got to fight this one. I'm opposed to a tax increase for mosquito abatement. Thank you.
And finally, we have Emily Allworth. Emily, you are now unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just quote from the website for the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment. I think that you should all read it. This website has a lot of really great information on it, and it is the largest group of physicians in Utah coming together to talk about issues. They have some serious concerns about what might be done to control the mosquito population in an area of the inland port ever since the port first emerged from the legislature in 2018. They're alarmed after learning that SLC MAD was proposing to invoke U.S. aerial force in launching aerial spraying over the Northwest Quadrant. In recent years, numerous medical experts and the entire medical societies have made these strong position statements regarding the danger to humans of even small doses of chemicals, and there are links to obesity, cancer, heart disease, birth defects, reproduction pathology, neurologic and brain disorders such as Parkinson's and Huntington's, impaired intellect, autism, and attention deficit disorder. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics, the World Health Organization, and the Endocrine Society are all mainstream medical organizations that have, in one form or another, called for a sharp reduction in human exposure to chemicals broadly and pesticides in particular. A recent review by 12 of the most knowledgeable researchers on endocrine disrupting chemicals, which are being used to in these mosquito abatements, has concluded that whether low doses influence certain human disorders is no longer conjecture because epidemiological studies show that environmental exposures to EDCs are associated with human diseases and disabilities. For every chemical that we've looked at and found a low dose cutoff, it has been studied at low doses that has an effect. There are many toxicologists and environmentalists and
Time.
Thank you.
Before Council, thank you everyone for commenting today. And before I ask for a motion, I do just want to reiterate that under Utah Code 17B11001 subsection 3, the Salt Lake City Council has no power to levy this tax. We have nothing to vote for or against. This is simply under Utah code, a way to give more public hearings towards this, but this will go back to the Mosquito Abatement District for their budget process. We have nothing to say. We're simply a forum by which people can give their opinion. With that, I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair.
Okay, go for it.
That was in unison.
Yeah. I'd like to I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the item back to the Mosquito Abatement District for the budget process.
Second.
With my following comment.
Nice.
I agree with most of these comments that were made tonight. And I say that because I've done a lot of thought about it, and I've looked at things and I've read things. And I really would request that the MAD conduct a true and thorough deep dive into the health impact of aerial spraying of pesticides. And I say that I'm going to repeat a thorough deep dive on the impact of it and look at it across the board. My motion.
Second.
Great. We have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion on this?
Other than supporting what Councilmember Dugan said, because, I mean, obviously we have several calls that it seems that these are very informed people, and I would like to invite this very group to keep calling the board, the Mosquito board, and other representatives in the legislature and your senators to voice your opinions as well, as you know that they may have more of a say than we do. So thank you.
Great. With that, yes, Councilmember Warden?
Yes, thank you. And I just want to sort of echo what my colleagues have said. And I received a lot of input and interest from constituents about this. And it really, I mean, one of the hardest parts about being on the city council is, being a forum for people to come and share these concerns and not being able to do anything about them, like legally or practically or anything. And so I really hope that the Mosquito Abatement Board will take the opportunity to review all of these comments and give them their really strong consideration. And I have several more that I'll be sending over. So
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Thank you. Council members, we are on to potential action items. We are at C1, which is an ordinance that would amend the zoning map for property at 860 and 868 East 3rd Avenue. I will look for a motion on this.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and that we adopt this ordinance.
Second.
Excuse me, this change.
It's not on, Cindy Lou.
I think we just need to approve it. It's already been closed.
Oh,
Move the,
okay, that's right. We already did have the one hearing and we're not doing the 2 hearings anymore. So sorry, old habits. Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the zoning change. And I'll just note that I have had some constituents write in about this, but I do think that this plan addresses all of the concerns that I've heard. So I will encourage people to go and look at the substance of the plan, and I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions. But I think this is the right thing for this spot. Thank you.
second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item C2 is an ordinance that would amend the zoning.
We need to call
We
our-
need to
our
change
city recorder.
some language a little bit. So Cindy Lou,
It actually doesn't change your motion. I just wanted to note for the record that the ordinance proposed has been updated to correct a minor text error to change the language that the effective date is not required to be, that the effective date is not going to place upon recording at the county recorder, but that upon filing of the city. Your motion doesn't change, just for the record. Thanks.
thank you. Thank you for that clarification. With that, this is an ordinance that would amend the zoning of properties at approximately 850 and 870 East, 2100 South. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers, a second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. We are on C3, which is an ordinance that would amend the zoning map for a parcel of property at 810 East and 800 South. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. At this point, we are on to our comment section. Mayor, as always, thank you for being here with us. We certainly appreciate it. Are there any questions or comments for Madam Mayor? I don't see any. Mayor, anything you'd like to say at this time? Great. Well, again, thank you for being here. We are now on to the general comment section of our agenda. This section is meant for people to make comments on anything they want outside of what was already heard here on the agenda. We did have several public hearings tonight, and those had their opportunity to be spoken about. And so the general comments are about anything else that was not on the agenda for a public hearing. As always, we are accepting comments on WebEx, the phone, or now in person. Isaac Quinedo from our staff is helping to moderate, and Taylor Hill will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. I'm sure everyone who's commented or is going to comment knows mostly the drill. Taylor will say 3 names at a time and unmute, or if you are in person, we will have Taylor call your name and you can come up to our podium and speak your 2 minutes at the podium. At the time that the 2 minutes is up, we will say time and mute your microphone or ask you to step down from the podium. All of our rules of decorum still are in place. Please be respectful to one another, be respectful to us, make sure that we are here to listen to all of you, and we want to make sure that people feel safe and invited and not intimidated while they're giving their comments. So with that, I will turn the time over to Taylor to start us out with our general comment section.
Thank you, Council Chair. It looks like we have about 29 people here to speak for general comment. First of which will be David Shear, followed by Dorothy Owen. Followed by Roger Harry, and then Jackson Bradshaw. David, you are now unmuted.
Great. So am I coming through?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Good evening. My name is David Shear. I'm the chair of the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council. Tonight, I'd like to urge you to approve the CIP request before you for the Capitol Hill traffic calming plan that was discussed during your work session earlier this evening. I especially want to thank Councilmember Wharton for his advocacy and excellent summary of the traffic calming plan, which you heard earlier. And I'd also like to thank Councilmember Rogers for his support of the plan. Traffic problems have plagued Capitol Hill for many years. The current Capitol Hill Master Plan, adopted in 2000 with amendments in 2001, documents the very problems we continue to deal with. These include the heavy volume of commuter traffic that cuts through parts of our neighborhood on the way to the state capitol, the university, and other destinations, speeding of this cut-through traffic, the narrow, steep streets of Marmalade and West Capitol, which compound cut-through traffic problems, the noise, debris, and traffic conflicts created by industrial traffic generated by the quarries and refineries north of us, the high volume of traffic on East Capitol Boulevard due to visitors to Ensign Peak, the most popular tourist destination in Salt Lake City, and speeding on East Capitol Boulevard. These problems have become much worse over the 21 years since the master plan was adopted. They undermine the quality of life for our residents. They create hazards for pedestrians and cyclists in a neighborhood that would otherwise be a model of walkability and alternative means of transportation. The noise created by industrial traffic on 300 West and racing on East Capitol Boulevard make it literally impossible at times to get a good night's sleep. It is high time these problems were addressed. In November 2019, our neighborhood council initiated a resident-based process to identify specific areas where problems exist and collaborate with Councilmember Wharton, Salt Lake City's Transportation Division, UDOT, and the UTA to come up with practical, effective solutions. Over the following 18 months, we held many meetings bringing together residents and public agencies to develop the plan that is the basis for our CIP request. I think this is a great example of people coming together and
Next, we will hear from Roger Harry, followed by Jackson Bradshaw, and then Alice McHugh.
This is Roger Harry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'd just like to addend those comments and stress the traffic issues on East Capitol Boulevard. It's become a speedway. I've clocked cars as fast as 80 miles an hour. So a dangerous area for small children. So just kind of put that in the mix with the other issues we're talking about with traffic abatement. So that was my comment.
Next, we will hear from Jackson Bradshaw, followed by Alice McHugh, and then Tina Rohr. Jackson, you are now unmuted.
Great. So my name is Jackson Bradshaw, and I would also like to urge you to support the CIP request of the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Calming Plan. I wanted to speak a little bit about how this issue has affected me personally, as David Shear has done a great job representing the extensive research, site visits, and planning that the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council has done with city engineering officials. I live at the bottom of Zane Avenue. I'm sure many of you know it. It's one of the steepest hills in Salt Lake City. At the bottom of that hill, Zane tees with Wall Street, making my house essentially a runaway truck ramp. According to a GRAMA report, since 2016, there have been over 15 incidents reported at the intersection of Zane and Wall Street. In the short 2 years I have lived here, I have personally witnessed 7 accidents and had 3 accidents involving my property. The most recent incident involved an out-of-control car that traveled over 60 feet into my property, crashing through fences, retaining walls, and into building structures. Luckily, no one was around when this accident occurred, but had there been a pedestrian or my family around, the accident could have been fatal. This accident is not alone. It's been repeated many times over the years. This is just one of the many traffic issues that the Capitol Hill neighborhood faces. It cannot be ignored that the Capitol Hill neighborhood faces many unique issues that are unprecedented across the valley. The Capitol Hill traffic calming map takes into account all of these issues to create a more livable and walkable neighborhood. From our narrow and winding roads with dangerous intersections, the steepest hills in the valley, industrial traffic, and cut-through traffic between the Capitol and 600 North Freeway exit. We cannot wait for a death or serious injury to take action. The Capitol Hill traffic calming plan must be addressed. We have done our research, we've garnered feedback and support from the community with over 200 signatures on a petition, and we have worked with city engineering officials to build a comprehensive plan. All that's left is funding, and we need your support. That's all for my comment.
Next, we will hear from Alice McHugh, and then Tan Hoyen, and then Robin Adminson. Alice, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. This concerns the inland port. Obviously, you know that we are in the midst of a 20-year drought, which may go to 30 years if climatologists are correct. And Salt Lake City is responsible for the water for the port. An estimated 5,000 warehouses, each with 1,500 employees, and Salt Lake is responsible for the water. What are you going to do about that? Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Tang Hoyen, followed by Robin Adminson, and then Nicole Curtis. Tang, you're now unmuted.
Hi, my name is Tang Heng. Talk about the budget amendment to support the capital improvement projects at this tennis center. On behalf of all the players and staff at Libby Park and Wasatch Hill Tennis Center, I would like to thank Mayor and Council members for your guidance to lead us through the tough time last year safely with a consistent mask policy. During the COVID time, winter 2020 and 21, we were full from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. with so many groups, over 25 zip code. Everyone is so grateful that we were open and provided a safe environment for them to play and keep them sane. Tennis is the only sport they could play during that time. However, the current bubble is too old. Water leaking in, hazard with electricity. We need a year-round bubble tennis courts. We raised $650,000, but we need help from the city. Please consider a budget amendment to support the capital improvement project at the tennis center. Tennis provides equality for people from different social economic background. At 15 years staying at the tennis center, I can see Rowan Hall and Guadalupe students were playing tennis under the same bubble. Everybody play tennis. Divorced people play tennis. Stay-home parent play tennis. Never late to play. We have a 60-year-old lady retire and still playing 30 years more of tennis. So I'm here to really thankful for what you did, and I'm asking you guys to consider the budget amendment for these tennis clubs. Thank you.
Next, we have Robin Adamson, and then Nicole Curtis, and then Daniel Schelling. Robin, you're now unmuted.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. As you mentioned in the joint resolution on racism as a public health hazard, which I believe you all unanimously supported this evening, structural racism creates inequities that include environmental and economic injustice, driving health disparities in communities surrounding both inland and seaports. These disparities include cancer clusters, depression, anxiety, ADHD, diabetes, and much more. Each of these health issues impact employment viability for the affected communities. As you move forward to dismantle systemic and structural racism, can we rely on you to do the necessary research on the human health impact that the inland port will have on the communities along the west side? These include Glendale, West Point, Rose Park, and West Valley, all of which, as you mentioned, include high populations of people of color and economically disadvantaged non-people of color. Furthermore, can we also rely on you to support economically just economies as listed in President Biden's American Rescue Plan, such as sustainable and even regenerative building materials that not only begin sequestering pollutants as soon as they are implemented, but can also furthermore be produced by Utah farmers and businesses and be implemented into the very structure of the Utah Inland Port? I would be more than happy to speak with anyone to discuss these issues that is in attendance this evening. Please feel free to contact me via email. If you'd like that, I can put it in chat.
Next, we will hear from Nicole Curtis, followed by Daniel Schelling, and then Michael Valentine. Nicole, you are now unmuted.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I have recently reached out, Mayor, to you personally and to your council members to speak regarding the Pantages Theater. We've reached out as preservationists. I've reached out as an expert in the field of preservation and restoration of over 25 years. But tonight, Mayor, on public record, I'm reaching out to you mother to mother. I was recently handed a photo of you walking into the Pantages Theater and doing a tour with what looks like a small child. So my question is, you have voted continuously and supported that this building be demoed because it's too hazardous and too far gone. So my question tonight is, if this building is so far gone, why on earth would you be taking your child in on a tour? You became a city council member because you wanted to have cleaner air in Salt Lake City. In fact, you have a nonprofit called Breathe Utah. Yet you are not taking into effect the health impact that the demolition over 100,000 square feet of historic building that's 103 years old will have on your city. And Mayor, you have failed to answer your constituents' request to have a public viewing to assess this building for themselves. Yet you have had the privilege of touring this building and again taking small children in. So my question tonight is the building really that hazardous? And if it is, are you a negligent parent? Or is it just that no one wants to comment that the building can indeed be saved and you're just ignoring all these facts about it being up for national registration for historic preservation and the fact that it could be saved? Mayor, we would like an answer. I'm speaking on behalf of many of your citizens of Salt Lake City, and I'm also questioning this as someone who has been in this field for over 25 years. I do believe you ignored the facts. I do believe you chose to vote for the demolition and the sale sale, giving this building for free to Heinz Development for your own benefit.
I would like to remind people that we would like to maintain respect when we're giving comments and making sure that we are talking about the issues at hand. I think I appreciate not intimidating other speakers or trying to intimidate members of the council or the mayor. But we do ask, and I think that we have given a space and a forum and have tried to create a space and a forum where people feel comfortable being able to give their opinion. They feel like if, for example, if somebody had a differing opinion, that they wouldn't feel uncomfortable in giving that opinion here in our space. This is for everyone's opinion. We do value opinions, but I would ask again and remind people to be respectful. And if there is a level of disrespect, we will just mute you and you will forfeit time with the council. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Daniel Schelling, followed by Michael Valentine, and then Hillary Jacobs. Daniel, you are now unmuted.
Okay, thank you. My name is Daniel Schelling, and I would like to begin by thanking the City Council for the hard work they're doing as our representatives in the city. I'd also like to thank the council for including a conditional appropriations clause in the city budget for the funding of further trail construction in the Salt Lake City foothills as part of the Park Department's Foothills Trail Master Plan. In addition to including a conditional appropriations clause in the budget, there have been discussions regarding the appointment of an independent oversight committee to examine past work done by the Parks Department as part of the Foothills Trails Master Plan, and to determine whether the Parks Department has met the goals necessary to receive additional funding for the further implementation of the plan. At the present time, though, the size and makeup of a potential oversight committee has not been determined. I would therefore like to stress to the council and to the mayor's office the importance of the following. First, a Foothill Trails Oversight Committee should not include members of the Parks Department, as it is the work of the Parks Department that the Oversight Committee must assess. Second, an Oversight Committee should not include any groups or individuals that were involved in the development of the master plan, as the plan itself must be reassessed. Third, the Parks Department should not be allowed to choose who is on the Oversight Committee, though they should be allowed to nominate potential members of the committee. And fourth, the Oversight Committee should be independent of the Parks Department and not in any way under the control of the Parks Department or its employees. I and many other Salt Lake City residents believe that a Foothills Trail Oversight Committee is necessary to ensure that the Foothills Trail Master Plan meets the stated goals and objectives of the city, and that the above stated conditions are necessary to ensure that a committee is able to do its job effectively while at the same time avoiding potential conflicts of interest. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Michael Valentine, followed by Hillary Jacobs, and then Cindy Cromer. And I believe Michael Valentine is there in person.
Is it on? It's on? All right, cool. All right, so back again. Yeah, at this point, it's been 2 years here, so I'm like 90% here just to say things into the record, 10% here to talk to you guys. I'm hoping you listen, We have people all around the world on this right now. I was here earlier talking about some very serious things that go way beyond the theater. Chris was talking on his Instagram yesterday about transparency and getting rid of the exclusive agreements, which is great. I applaud you guys for that. Those exclusive agreements are what led us into this mess, having Heinz and LaSalle hold this theater hostage for 6 years and poison any real chance to see it saved. But changing the exclusive agreements after the fact does not bring us justice to the theater, or it does not bring justice to democracy and what happened these last several years under Danny Walsa and the RDA. I'm here to read a letter specifically into the record from Daniel Stevens of Heinz saying, let us know when you hear back on the purchase and sales agreement. As mentioned, it's Heinz' strong preference to execute the purchase and sales agreement before this goes public. And that's to Tammy Hunsaker. Danny Waltz is on there, same with Dusty Harris of Heinz. I think that really shows that this has never been a transparent process. let alone like this entire investigation we have, inflating restoration numbers. The building is historic. We're putting it on the historical registry right now. There's tons of tax credits. We need real justice here, guys. We're asking you for help. This is a very serious issue. It goes way beyond the theater. We need an investigation into the RDA. We need Danny Watts and Tammy Hunsaker held accountable. And we need answers right now. This is an election year. You know, we'll find 5 people that will find justice and democracy if you guys aren't up for it. I'm hoping you join us. I'm here willingly to talk to you. We would love to talk more, but we need your help. Stand for democracy. Stand for this right now, and let's make, you know, justice and truth shine in Salt Lake and not corruption. So thanks.
Next, we will hear from Hillary Jacobs, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then Robert Stefanik. Hillary, you are now unmuted.
Thank you very much. This is Hillary Jacobs, and first I want to thank you for addressing the shortfalls and challenges presented by the Salt Lake City Trails Master Plan. Your attention is most appreciated, and you're doing a remarkable job getting a handle on this complicated situation. Trails Utah, the mountain bike lobby that has played a dominant role in developing the Salt Lake City Trails Master Plan, is also behind the planned development of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail Extension and Parley's Point Trails. This extension will cut across steep foothill terrain above the East Bench, resulting in more damage to foothill habitats like that already seen from Phase 1 cuts above the avenues. The mayor ordered the Trails Master Plan pause, and the City Council placed the conditional appropriation clause to prevent further damage in the foothills. Did you know the Bonneville Shoreline Trail Extension and Parley's Point Trails, which are integral to the Master Plan trail system on the ground, are not included in the Trails Master Plan on paper, and therefore are exempt from the pause? And that the same consultant who developed the Salt Lake City Trails Master Plan has gained yet another project because it is not part of the comprehensive plan? Is Parks and Public Lands allowing a single entity to lobby for, design, fund, and construct a trail in the city's foothills that is not included in the Salt Lake City Trails Master Plan? If so, then the city seems to be relinquishing their oversight duties to a single lobby whose mission centers on developing our public lands. Also, this group receives partial funding from private businesses who stand to gain financial benefit from this arrangement. Please ensure all trail building activity, even that which may not be written into the master plan but is wholly integral to it, to follow the same stipulations set forth by the mayor and you, our city council. Anything less is a slap in your faces. Don't let lobbyists get away with this insolence. Thank you so much.
And next we will hear from Cindy Cromer, followed by Robert Stefanik, and then Eric Edelman. Cindy, you are now unmuted.
Hi, everybody. I have my usual jam-packed 2 minutes prepared, and I sent you a copy of the text right after 5 o'clock this afternoon. In light of the number of people lined up to speak, I'm just going to draw your attention to your email under my address and ask you to please look at how we are losing housing and how it is being stolen from our community. Thank you very much. I'll be back in touch the next time you have general comments.
Next, we will hear from Robert Stefanik, followed by Eric Edelman, and then Oscar Arvizu. Robert, you are now unmuted.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm talking today because I want to bring up some, again, about the Utah Pantages. Some things I'm kind of concerned about that I would like to bring up is why were no historical experts contacted about the restoration costs? Why weren't we have over like 400 experts all across the United States that have done multiple theaters? Why haven't any of them been contacted? Why are they now coming out when they do find out about this and they tell us the correct cost? Why are they being discredited? Is this deal being railroaded? And why can't we, the people, go see this theater in person? And why is it like that others can go, like people that have been voted in can go see it, but why can't we? Why is it that there was a chance for people to go in? Why was it canceled? Why was the public initiative survey canceled in 2018. We need our answers. We want our answers. We want to know why you're not answering our questions about this, why things are being avoided, why no experts were truly asked. And that's all I have to say. I hope to get some answers from you guys soon.
And next we will hear from Eric Edelman, followed by Oscar Arvizu, and then Holly Moyer. Eric, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you, Council and Mayor, for allowing us to speak. I specifically am speaking in regards to the Salt Lake City Foothills project. I've been along this process for the last year and a half, followed it. I have to voice that I'm rather disturbed and saddened that phase one has gone so poorly. As a civil engineer that studies soils and rock mechanics, and I spend days a week on the trail system, the phase one trails could not have been located in worse terrain than they were placed in. Alta and the Planning Commission has exhibited poor judgment in phase one. We should not move forward with them in phase two and phase three. We have not been given the opportunity to proactively engage the community to implement changes. I've listened to Louis Kogan speak, and he has not given any updates on actual changes or adjustments that are being implemented. I am begging you to allow the citizens to voice their concerns for phase two or any trails that might be built. Additionally, while attending the peanut board meetings, trying to voice and be engaged with the representatives that are to engage and educate the council, I've also noticed that Kristen Riker, the head of the Parks Department, has done her best to inhibit the council, the peanut board, from informing you of what the citizens are voicing to them. The peanut board, Samantha Finch, I've watched her basically kill any conversation numerous weeks from the citizens voicing and begging the peanut board for change, to inform you and educate you. I am just in shock that the Parks Department has so much sway over inhibiting the contact between the peanut board advising the council. I ask that you please revoke the funding for the next phase, that the second step, we open up the planning to allow the community to actually provide recommendations for improvements moving forward. And thirdly, that a third party be brought in that it prohibits engagement from the Parks Department, because right now they have too much power. They are giving you the dialogue that they have proposed for the last 2 years. They have not done any changes or improvements or taken feedback from the community. I thank you all for listening.
Time.
Amy Fowler, you're my representative. I will be sending you an email.
Next, we will hear from Oscar Arvizu, followed by Holly Moyer, and then Kevin Hartley. Oscar, you are now unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So my name is Oscar Arvizu, and I'm sure you're probably sick of hearing about saving the Utah Theater, but I just want to say that it's a shame to be losing that building, because some luxury apartments can have a parking lot, because that's what will stand in its place, basically some parking lot. We're giving away our history and amazing architecture for a strip of sidewalk with some plants, a garden on top of the parking lot possibly, and that's not even guaranteed, and some affordable apartments that will expire in a few years. And we're paying the developer in tax credits, $3 million, I believe, close to that. And we're giving them away the building for free. If you're going to give it away to be destroyed, give it or sell it to someone that will preserve it. There are people willing to buy it to restore it, and preservationists that will work on the same, that have worked on the same types of buildings, say that it can be done for a lot cheaper than the city and developer claim, or give it to someone that can use it, the money to support charities or help the issues with like homelessness. Like we have issues here in the city already that can use the money. People are barely catching wind of this deal, and you are hearing the outcry. If you're afraid of lawsuits by the developer, that only makes them look bad, or work with them to somehow save it. It belongs to us. It's still not too late to save it. You may say the deal is too far along, but the building is still standing. It will be destroyed because it is not profitable to the developer, and they have said that in the meetings. Once the building is gone, we've lost our history and something we will never see again nor build again. All for a parking lot. This is our legacy and yours. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Holly Moyer, followed by Kevin Hartley, and then George Chapman. It looks like Holly has left the meeting, so we will move on to Kevin Hartley. And then next will be George Chapman and then Mike Hatch. Kevin, you are now unmuted.
My name is Kevin Hartley, supporting the Utah Pantages Theater restoration. In September of 2018, Danny Waltz and the RDA were informed that the Utah Pantages Theater was eligible for the National Registry, and yet still in 2019, on multiple occasions, cited to this council knowingly outdated 2013 information to say that the theater was not eligible for the National Registry, knowing that there was a reversal on the stance as stated by Amber Anderson of the State Historical Preservation Office in September of 2018, the year before. Further, the RDA has astonishingly never attempted even once to submit the Utah Pantages Theater to verify that eligibility. Danny Waltz personally claimed in 2019, after knowing it was eligible for registry, that if the theater was eligible, it would only be eligible for 10% maximum tax credits, and that it would not be eligible for those tax credits until the restoration of the theater was complete. The actual percentage of eligible tax credits is double that, as high as 20% tax credit eligibility, and you can further claim up to 90% of the tax credits upfront to fund the initial costs of the restoration. Danny Waltz and the RDA have also not contacted many of the experts in the historical theater preservation area, nor contacted any of the restored sister Pantages theaters to get insight or guidance on restoration rollout and cost phasing. This negligence is not unique to Salt Lake, however. It is a known pattern nationwide. California in 2011 dissolved all 400 plus RDAs, stating that they act as an unelected local government of their own and more often than not go against public interests in favor of billionaire developer interests. This sounds familiar. If the council is unaware of or unwilling to see the RDA's inherent corruption, Danny Waltz's repeated blatant lies to this council in favor of the billionaire developer Hines, I urge you to investigate, bring justice, and save the theater. This is a lesson we can learn from now and apply now. Bring justice for the RDA's wrongdoings in the form of a formal investigation and save the Utah Pantages Theater. I reserve my time. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Mike Hatch, and then Jared West. George, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we're going to have a public hearing on Allen Park, but at least dogs should be allowed on Allen Park since it is a paved park. On another issue, I urge the city to provide an attorney for every renter that is being served with an eviction in Third District Court, since if they are evicted and become homeless, they'll probably end up homeless in Salt Lake City. The city spends millions on rental assistance, but it is all wasted when the renters who get that assistance are served with eviction papers. On another issue, you discussed the city's affordable housing plan today at RDA, and it calls into question why this city is considering higher density housing in single-family home neighborhoods. It is the dream, the American dream, of most people to be in a home, a house. High-density housing, SROs, and micro-units are not the dream for most people. It is an insult that what they need is high-density housing. I think you recognized it because you put it as the highest top priority in your affordable housing plan. So I urge the city to allow housing on the 80% of the city that does not allow housing, and stop worrying about the 12% of the city property that's single-family home neighborhoods. 80% of the property in this city does not allow housing. So I think you should be encouraging housing at the International Center and its 50,000 employees. The city has said you can't have housing there, but you gave $1 million for housing at the airport, which is in the same zone as the International Center. So I'm encouraging you to allow housing on the rest of it, of the property in the city that you don't allow housing, and please put in more steel plates for traffic calming, especially on East Capitol Boulevard. Thanks for listening.
Next, we will hear from Mike Hatch, followed by Jared West, and then Brian Hutchinson. Mike, you are now unmuted.
Hi, this is Mike Hatch. I'm just speaking out in support of the Pantages Theater and just wanted to express my disappointment if we aren't able to save the building, and would urge the city to work closely with the developer to make sure that the final result, final project there was worth the loss of this theater. I'm concerned that that park on top of a parking garage could become a huge liability, and they will end up closing it. About 20 years ago, there was an unfortunate accident on the roof of the church, the LDS Church Conference Center Gardens. And ever since, they closed and restricted access to that area. So a concern that something similar could happen there. I'm surprised that this developer would want to take on this liability. And I would really hope that they would reconfigure their plans to work around the theater. They mentioned that it wasn't economically, it didn't make economic sense to do so, but they could come back after demolishing the theater and use that same excuse to scale back their plans to something that would have possibly worked with the theater. So just some concerns and thoughts there. Thank you.
It looks like Jared West has left the meeting, so we will move on to Brian Hutchinson, followed by Donna Lyman, and then Emily Allworth. And Brian is there in person.
Hello, can you hear me very well? Hi, as the CHNC Transportation Committee Chair, I'm here to advocate for street safety, including pedestrian safety. That is prerequisite to livability and community
Can you hold on
enrichment.
just 1 second? We're going to make sure that that microphone's on because it is a little muffled. You can, yeah. Whoa, whoa, as I spill everything.
Should I start over? Okay, great, thanks. So I'm the chair of the Capitol Hill Neighborhood Council Transportation Committee, and I'm here to advocate for the street safety, including pedestrian safety, that's prerequisite to livability and community enrichment in the city's northern gateway neighborhood of Capitol Hill and Marmalade and all the other smaller neighborhoods. Capitol Hill Traffic Calming Plan of the CIP application submitted last August is the result of a nearly 2-year collaboration between Capitol Hill residents, Capitol Transportation Committee, Salt Lake Transportation Division, Councilmember Wharton, Salt Lake Mayor's Office, Wasatch Front Regional Council, State Representative Jen Daly Provost, area school administrators, Marmalade Library administrator, local businesses, UDOT, UTA, Salt Lake City PD, UHP, and regional businesses, including refineries and gravel pits. We've worked with the Transportation Division in the development of a model for the region bounded by I-15, 1800 North, North Temple, and East Capitol Boulevard. That includes speed suppression devices, speed limit reduction, street topology revision, signaling, preferred route information, and other elements to keep regional commuters on major corridors and off narrow secondary streets. I should say that there were a half dozen 3-hour site visits, including 3 bike tours on several very steep streets for the transportation engineers to test their stamina. And also we rode out to the gravel pits and across railroad tracks and did a lot of rigorous work, a lot of note taking over. And I commend the Transportation Division on their effort. We've worked with the Salt Lake Transportation Division in Utah, UDOT and Sticker Parson and Councilmember Wharton, and Jen Daly Provost and Senator Worley on reroute industrial traffic to safer, more efficient roadways, expansion of I-15 corridor. Anyway, I'd like to thank you very much for your support of the traffic calming plan.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Donna Lyman, followed by Emily Allworth, and then Ronnie Frazier. Donna, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for providing the opportunity for me to give my comments to the Salt Lake City Council. My topic is regarding the preservation of the historical Pantages Theater you have downtown. And I'm speaking to you as a visitor, not a constituent, not a resident there. I visit Salt Lake and I enjoy the historical architecture there, as many of your visitors do. You have a beautiful skyline that is starting to get corrupted with slick high rises, skyscrapers. And I know a lot of visitors do enjoy the historical architecture. And I'd like you to consider keeping that wonderful architecture by helping to preserve that historical Pantages Theater that you have downtown. It's just beautiful. And I would hope that you really look into that and think of what you have to offer for the future. I know you like the history, and I think you like the future. So thank you so much for letting me comment as a visitor.
Next, we will hear from Emily Allworth, followed by Ronnie Frazier, and then Vance Patrick. Emily, you are now unmuted.
Alrighty, thank you. I would like to talk about watering. As you know, we are in a huge drought and we're using more and more water every single year. One of the biggest signs recently was the Sugar House Park having to drain its pond due to the lack of water from its source and potential issues for disease with birds. I do support this decision. However, I think that we need to look at larger ways of mitigating water use within Salt Lake City. I believe that looking at laws that have been passed in other states, such as the Colorado House Bill 191231, new applicant energy and water efficiency standards, would be a great use of potential power within Salt Lake City to mitigate some of the overwatering. I think creating smart water senses and putting more money into encouraging these, and also creating laws that actually make it mandatory for businesses in residential areas to use these systems would be a huge boon to the state. It would be able to cut water usage in half for people who are heavy water users, and it would actually cut down what, according to a 2010 study of American water consumption, is an average use of 167 gallons of water per person for Utah residents. That is a ton of water that could be mitigated when it comes to residential watering and commercial watering. I think that we need to reprioritize how we're using water in the state. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Ronnie Frazier, followed by Vance Patrick, and then Angie Starr. Ronnie, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. I'm also calling in about the Utah Pantages Theater. I just have a few comments. Why was nobody from the State Historical Office never brought before the RDA board to clarify? Why was the theater never applied to the registry in the past 10 years for the historical registry? Why did Tammy Hunsaker collude with Hines and LaSalle to hide from the public and city council? Why were no historical experts contacted about restoration costs during this time? Why are experts who have restored theaters being discredited by people unequipped in historic restorations? Why was the public tour and survey canceled in 2018? Why was the updated structural costs canceled in 2019? And why did Hines ask for a blanket grant exemption to hide all info about the theater deal from the public? And why also did Hines ask for the contract to be signed before the public ever found out about the deal? Why did LaSalle donate to Mayor Mendenhall weeks before she was set to vote on a deal he would make millions from? And why can the other theaters, the Pantages theaters nationwide, be restored and for substantially less, but your guys's can't? It's not in that bad of a shape. It's beautiful and it's historic. You should save it instead of knocking it down for a glass skyscraper to put parking in and then put a park on top of your guys' parking garage. It looks ridiculous. And why are the meetings open for the public days after this deal was railroaded through the Planning Commission? Thank you for your time.
And it looks like Vance Patrick has left the meeting, so we will move on to Angie Starr and then Benjamin Anderson. Angie, you are now unmuted.
Thanks. I'm with the Nicole Curtis team in Detroit, and I stand behind everything that Nicole said tonight. And I also stand behind Michael and the other citizens who are speaking against this theater being demolished. I also want to know why the theater, that no historical experts were ever contacted about the restoration costs. And then when you have preservationists like Nicole Curtis telling you the theater can be saved, the city goes silent. There's nothing. We need some answers, and this theater needs to be saved. It's beautiful, it's a treasure.
And finally, we will hear from Benjamin Anderson. Benjamin, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. I am on here just viewing. I agree wholeheartedly with Nicole and many of the other voices I hear on here. So, thank you. That's all I have.
And that was our final commenter tonight.
Great. Thank you to everyone who commented, particularly those that did so in following our rules of decorum. I appreciate that. Council members, we are on our first new business item, E1, which is a resolution of intention to designate Central Business Improvement Area 2022.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers, a second by
Councilmember Dugan.
Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this?
I'm just wondering, we don't need to read the whole thing, do we? Okay, great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item E2 is a resolution ratifying execution of a second amendment to an interlocal agreement between Salt Lake City, the Redevelopment Agency, and the Utah Performing Arts Center Agency, UPACA, for operation of the George S. and Dolores Dorr Eccles Theater. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, move for approval of the resolution.
Madam Chair, sorry if I could just jump in with a friendly suggestion that because this has never appeared on an agenda before tonight, technically you would need to suspend the rules and adopt.
On this one?
On this one.
Okay, well, I move that we suspend the rules and adopt the resolution authorizing the attached interlocal agreement between Salt Lake City, the RDA, and the Utah Performing Arts Center for operation of the George S. and Dolores Dorr Eccles Theater.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. E3 is regarding an ordinance that would amend sections of the Salt Lake City Code relating to campaign finance reporting and personal campaign committees.
Madam Chair, I move that the council suspend the rules and adopt an ordinance amending sections of Salt Lake City Code relating to campaign finance reporting and personal campaign committees.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Ferris. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We are now on to Section F, unfinished business. F1 is an ordinance that would amend 2 sections of the Salt Lake City Code relating to animals running at large and other parks.
Madam Chair, I move the council adopt an ordinance amending sections 8.04.390 and 15.04.350 of the Salt Lake City Code relating to animals running at large in other parks.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. F2 is regarding an ordinance approving a memorandum of understanding between Salt Lake City Corporation and the International Association of Firefighters Local 81, representing eligible employees pursuant to the collective bargaining and employee representation joint resolution dated March 22nd, 2011.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Ferris. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Item F3 is regarding an ordinance approving a memorandum of understanding between Salt Lake City Corporation and the Salt Lake City Police Association, representing eligible employees pursuant to the collective bargaining and employee representation joint resolution dated March 22nd, 2011.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Do we have any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Our last unfinished business item is F4 regarding an ordinance appropriating necessary funds to implement for fiscal year 2021-2022 the provisions of the Memorandum of Understanding between Salt Lake City Corporation and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1004, representing eligible employees.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt this ordinance as well.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Council members, we're at our last section, Section G, the consent portion of our agenda. I will look for a motion.
Move for approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Oh, I was an aye. Thanks. That passes unanimously. Thank you to everyone who participated in today's RDA work session and formal meeting. Thank you, council members. Thank you to the staff. We are adjourned.